beginning with the absolute basics. Not that it's how to saddle your horse and that, because I'm assuming if you're watching this you probably know that. So it's more about how the horse feels about it. So imagine you were playing basketball in a basketball team. So you go to the gym, looking forward to your game, and in the changing rooms everybody's stressing out and saying, come on, hurry up, and pushing your feet into your shoes and pulling your top over your head for you, and it's all very uncomfortable. By the time you get out onto the court, you're not feeling so good. So it's a bit about how the horse feels about it all, you know. I like to start just with that before before even riding, before doing anything, groundwork, whatever you're going to do, that we just check that all the simple things of putting on the halter, putting on the bridle and the saddle and the brushing and all that stuff is feeling good to the horse, that he's relaxed and accepting of all that. We're going to use Umo because he's not really used to any of this stuff, so he might have more of a reaction than the other horses. He's looking very sleepy at the moment. Yeah, and also all this part is part of your warm-up in coming into the moment, into the stable yard, dropping all the stresses and worries and whatever else you're carrying from your daily life, and just to be taking some deep breaths, grounding yourself, coming into your centre, and just being rather than doing. Just being there with your horse. So we're just going to have a look at that. So Uma's already standing here with me. Also, obviously, if your horse is in the field, I mean, our fields are waterlogged at the moment, so catching the horse in the field is another thing. And, you know, bringing him through the gate, bringing him from the field to wherever you're going to saddle him, that's groundwork, you know, that's already part of your groundwork exercise. So if you do that well, then that's part of your horse's warm-up also. So we're just going to put his head collar on. He's here very nice and relaxed. Normally I would just use the halter to ask him to bring his head round to me and put his nose in here. And then we can just fasten it up. And we're going to just take him out and tie him up over there and see what he thinks about the saddle. Now he has had a saddle on when he was over at the breeder, because they'd started him getting prepared to be ridden, so he has worn a saddle. That was all a bit of a drama, so that's another story that we will pick up on Umo's own story, part of the series about the horses. And he's been here for over a year, and when Aglaya was here visiting me, she said, oh, what's he like with the saddle? And I said, well, so we did put the saddle on him that day in the arena, and he had a little run around and had a bit of a rodeo, so he might have a bit of a reaction, but I thought for demonstration purposes that was possibly more useful. So let's take him over there and tie him up on the wall. I'm going to tie him up here just using this little bit of baling twine just in case. Of course he's got the rope halter on, so if something was to happen and pull back, that certainly isn't going to break, so just in case, you never know. There we go. So that just kind of gets the rope out the way. So brushing should of course be pleasurable to your horse. He doesn't really care if he's clean or not, I don't think. That's mostly for us, and of course it's important to check there's nothing that's going to annoy him where the saddle or the girth's going to go. But we'd like him to be a bit relaxed about brushing. It should be pleasurable, so you can take that opportunity to relax yourself, find a place maybe he likes being scratched. Where's his place? That's maybe not so much. Under here I think he likes. Ah, there. Oh, that's a nice place, Umo. Yay. Good boy. So, yeah, that's an important thing. You know, I've had a lot of students over the years here and getting on and very energetically brushing the horse, especially with Galileo, because he's so sensitive to the tiniest thing, and he's standing there, ooh, his head up looking all tense and looking all worried. And if I say to the person, do you think the horse is enjoying that? Very often they hadn't even thought about that. So we sometimes just do the exercise to take the horse into the arena and see if you can brush him without him being tied up, so he has the choice to walk away if he's not happy with it. So that's quite a fun little challenge to do. Okay, so we're going to get the saddle and see what he thinks about that. Well, the pad, actually, we'll start with the pad. So for me, it's important how my horse feels about the saddling. I've been helping my neighbour, and she has a 3-year-old Arab mare who was started at the breeder in Germany, and then she brought her over here. And I went to help her because the mare kept bucking her off. So that's a whole other story. We have been the other day doing a little bit of filming with her, so we will be posting that when we've had time to edit it and sort it out. Anyway, the point is, as soon as she went to saddle her, she immediately got very tense, head up in the air, not at all happy with the saddle. So I said to her, that really is the first lesson, and if I was you, I would just, you know, practice with that again and again and again, even if you don't do anything else that day. It's very important to me and to the horse. And yeah, I think anybody who really loves their horse, they care about these things. So Umo would get his face out of the camera. Thank you, Umo. So we're just going to see how he feels about the pad first. Good boy. There we go. So actually, he's not all that bothered about that. I thought he might have had a bit more reaction with that. I did do work with this with him over there, and actually he's not that bothered about it at all. If he was, then I would do it with him untied, so he has the opportunity to move around if he feels he needs to move. But let's go ahead with the saddle. And actually, Morisco, he has a very funny thing with saddling, so maybe we can do that as a separate vlog and really take a more in-depth look about it, so I can explain that in Morisco's own story. So let's get the saddle and see what he thinks about that. Good boy, good boy. So we're just going to keep an eye on his expression as we go putting the saddle on. I'm going to make sure I stay relaxed. And sometimes a good way to stay relaxed for us is by humming. When I was a kid, the guy who ran the stables, he constantly hummed. And he could do horses, that really difficult horses. We had some crazy horses and vicious horses, and he could do anything with any horse. And he constantly hummed away, usually Scottish kind of songs. So that really made a difference. So he's not very bothered about it. He's also not completely relaxed about it. So that is something that I would practice a bit more with him. We could do a bit of work with it in the arena. Because he's a young horse, he's not been ridden yet. You know, really throwing the pad off and on a bit more carelessly, because of course it's all very well going very softly. But it's good that he just gets used to it being a bit more matter of fact. But yeah, he's quite not too bothered about this. So I'm just, for demonstration purposes, going to do the girth. I'm not going to tighten it up because, like I say, he's a young horse, he might have a reaction. And I would do this in the sand arena, not tied on the wall, just in case. But the only point I want to make here with the girth is that we can do it very softly, just enough that the saddle won't fall off while we do other things, and go tightening it up little by little. And also tightening it up, taking into account the horse's breathing. You know, if you feel and watch for the breath and find a rhythm with just tightening it up as he's breathing in, I think that must feel more comfortable to the horse. Yeah, I mean, that all sounds very obvious, but I have seen people, they just go and they just immediately crank it up really tight. If you have a mare, I've noticed that they're even more sensitive. In fact, sometimes much more sensitive to the girth than geldings are. I'm not too sure why, but anyway, that's, like I say, we will come back to saddling if they're not happy with it, and do that on Morisco's story, because that is another story. Okay, let's have a look at putting the bridle on. Okay, so Umo has had a bridle on. I remember we did that over there, but it's quite a while ago. He has been here for a while, but like I said in the first welcome back intro, it's been a while since I've been able to do stuff with the horses. So let's see what he thinks about it. It might be interesting. So the first thing I want is for my horse to put his head down. I remember I had a lady here and she was rather short, and she said, "Oh, I've got such problems getting my horse's bridle on after standing." I said, "Why don't you teach the horse to put his head down?" And she looked at me like that just really had never crossed her mind, which is a bit strange. I mean, I'm a very tall person, but it's much more useful if the horse will put his head down. So I'm just going to ask him to put his head down. We have done a bit of this, so that's very easy for him to do. If you haven't taught your horse to put his head down, then that's maybe something you should start with. And that's just pressure and release, really, rewarding the slightest change, the smallest try. So you just put I can't demonstrate with him because he's doing it. We'll have to find a horse that doesn't know it. So you just put a little bit of pressure on. As soon as you get the tiniest reaction, you would let go and ask a little bit more and ask a little bit more and ask a little bit more. But you see, with a feather light touch there for Umo, that's already quite enough. So with a more experience, or a horse that's used to the bridle, I would just take the halter off actually. But because he's not used to it, I'm going to actually do it with the halter on, and maybe that's a good way. Hey, is that you getting ready to take the bit already? I hope so. Yes, I'm going to leave the halter on and take it off afterwards, just because he's not so used to having the bridle on. So let's see how we get on with this. I mean, I've never used this bridle on him. I don't even know if it's going to be the right size, but hopefully that's plenty big enough. So let's just put the reins over his head, and then we're just going to ask him to put his head down. He's having a good sniff of it. What do you think of that? Morisco's very good at this. In fact, you can almost hold it up and he'll stick his head out. Oh, he thinks he'd like to bite it. No. So, let's see. So we're just going to go from here. And just see. Put that in his mouth. What does he think about that? Oh, Umo. Oh, Umo. So good boy. So the good thing with having the halter still on, if I needed to, while bridling, I could ask him just to drop his head down. If you have any issues with that, then you can always have somebody help you with that. So somebody can be putting the bridle on and you can have somebody to help. Just make sure you coordinate it. Somebody to help by helping the horse keep his head down as you're doing that. So this bridle seems like it's way too big for him. I can't really go up anymore there. This was Unica's bridle actually. So we'll have to, I think I've got another one there, we'll have to find a bridle that fits him. This one's no good. But as we've got this far, let's just see how we would get this out the way now that we've got the bridle on, because obviously the bit's in the way. So we have to just take that in his mouth, round the top of the bit and out the other side. Which, if you don't know that, some people think that's not possible and it looks a bit like a magic trick. So, what did you think of that, Umo? Oh, I'm not really sure what I think about that. So, we'll, of course, whether to have a bridle or a halter, the horse's jaw, the relaxation of the jaw, all these are other things that we will be talking about as we progress. But he seems to be quite okay with that. Hey, Umo, thank you. You've been a very good demonstration horse. So, same for taking it off. I'll just ask him, just using this, to drop his head down again. And I'm just going to slip that over his ears, and I'm just going to hold it until he lets go of the bit on his own. So it never gets pulled out his mouth, it's not going to get banged off his teeth or anything like that. So again, you could do the same trick to get the halter back on before you take the bridle off if you needed to have the horse's head more down, you know. That was okay. I would like to practice with that a bit more. We might just do that now after filming, just that when he keeps his head down, a bit more relaxed as we take the bridle off. So, there we go. Thank you. He's been very good, Lord. Okay, so that's our first little very back to basics, but it's the point of it's not what you do, it's the way that you do it. We talked about this in one of our daily thoughts about how it always matters. It matters to the horse, and this exercise of putting the horse's head down is a very useful thing to know. You know, sometimes if they get very scared or nervous or looking at things and sometimes you can let them keep looking. It's good to keep the curiosity. But sometimes just to have a little suggestion, actually you can look, but why don't you do it with your head a little bit lower down? Sometimes when the poll is just a little bit lower than the withers, they just relax right away. So thank you for being here with us today, and we'll see you on the next one. Oops, sorry Umo. There's me always telling people, don't pat them, rub them. Did you see that? And I just did a little pat, and he jumped. Yeah, stupid me, huh? Sorry about that, Umo. So, rubbing, not patting. That was a nice little demonstration from Umo, how rubbing's much nicer than patting. There we go, you see? Rubbing feels good. Oh, yes. Oh, yes, look at that lip. Look at that lip going. Whoa. Yeah. Oh, nice. Oh, is that a good spot there? Oh, that's the spot right there. Yeah. Okay, see you next time.